Think Realty Nation, it's Abhi Golhar. Welcome to the Think Realty podcast. Now, if you're thinking about transitioning to multifamily, the idea is don't go out and buy 100 or 150 or 200 units. That's advice given by my awesome guest today, Jerome Myers. He'll be joining us in just a second. But this show is for you, the investor that has single family, or maybe not. And you're like, well, to heck with single family. I want to work on things that are bigger. I want to 10x my life because everybody tells you to 10x everything, all right? After my interview with Jerome, we'll talk a little bit about how COVID-19 has affected apartment renter preferences, and I think that's a very timely conversation to have for you apartment complex owners. And maybe Jerome can even, give us a one-liner or two about what he thinks about this. So that's a very unique trend that I want to dive into a little more with him, frankly. And we'll rock and roll from there. So that being said, we can't do this podcast without the help of our sponsors. And today's sponsor is Clint Coons of Anderson Business Advisors, who's nationally recognized for providing bulletproof asset protection, tax, and business strategy advice to real estate investors. Go to getbulletprooftoday.com and receive his book titled Asset Protection for Real Estate Investors for free while supplies last. All right, let's dig into the conversation because multifamily, I'm coming for you. Jerome, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Avi. Super excited to be here with you today.
Awesome. And so you took the red pill and I took the blue pill. So I think our realities are converging together at some point. That's not right? That doesn't make any sense. That makes some sense. I don't know. We'll move that into some edit.
Some people like the purple pill. It's okay. You got to be careful saying you took the blue pill, especially with ladies who are in their 50s or 60s. They can get excited about that.
This is a very good point. It depends on yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Now I know where you're going with that, sir. They can definitely get excited. So give us a little background. Who are you? What do you do before we jump into the multifamily conversation here?
Yeah, at the highest level, I'm a corporate America dropout, man. Back in 2016, I left corporate America after building a $20 million division for a Fortune 550. I showed up as employee number 2 on January 13th of 2015, was able to grow that division of that company to about 175 employees. The reward for that was laying people off, about half of that group at the end of that first year. And I got the news on Christmas Eve. And I had to spend between Christmas Eve and New Year's figuring out who's going to go forward with this. And I promised myself I'd never do it again. Fast forward to Thanksgiving of the next year, I said I'm never going to do it. Fast forward to Thanksgiving of the following year, and here I am doing it again. I was like, I'm out. So I dropped out, thought I was going to go buy an apartment building, and got turned away by 10 banks. They all said you didn't have the requisite experience. I started going down all the credentials that I thought were important, professional engineer, MBA, et cetera, et cetera. They said, but you haven't bought an apartment of similar size and executed the same business plan. You need to go find a partner. The problem was I didn't know anybody that had bought apartment buildings before. And so I just went and fix and flip like probably a lot of your listeners do, or, created some rental income. And I was fortunate enough to have a guy stop by one of my properties and say, hey, let me check out your finishes. And while we were going through the property, he mentioned an asset that I tried to buy 4 or 5 months earlier. And long story short, I was able to get into that deal as one of his partners, ended up being the asset manager for that deal. And all those same banks who told me no before were reaching out when the press release came out that we closed that deal, wondering what else I had in the pipeline because now I was this real estate mogul, just because I was in the paper. So the tables turn pretty quickly once you get in, and I think you become an expert even if you aren't after you do your first deal. But the law of the first deal is a real thing, and it's a barrier for a lot of folks.
So when it comes to the mindset to have success in this world, that seems very daunting for a lot of folks that are still in the position that you were in, which was this corporate America. Some of them like it, some of them hate it. How do you develop that? How do you develop that mindset kind of going into this investing world, the investing strategy that you've outlined for yourself during those days? Or was it just that promise that you made to yourself saying, this is not going to happen anymore?
Yeah, I think at the highest level, It was me deciding to bet on myself. I think a lot of people don't want the ball when the game's on the line, whereas there's people out there like Michael Jordan who want to take the game winning shot every single time. And I'm probably more in that boat. And so for the people who want the ball at the end of the game to try to make sure that their team wins, I think you can go make that type of bet. If you want to pass that ball to somebody else, you want somebody else to be responsible in a high stakes game, then it's probably not best for you to leave that role. And you can still have a wonderful living being a contributor in somebody else's organization. But there's a select group of people who are business leaders, and number ones is the way I like to characterize it. And they're going to be those folks who have that tolerance for being the person with the ball at the end of the game.
Yeah. Uh, I read Michael Jordan's book, and he also talks about how you're getting good at the game of basketball when the game of basketball slows down. And I think that is just epically true. That is just epically true. Um, I've been listening to your podcast, the Dreamcatchers podcast. It's available on iTunes, Spotify, etc. And one of the shows that you had, one of the guests that you had on your show, Garrett Bedrin, and the title of the show is called "Make Your Own Luck." And this is very indicative of where we have to be as entrepreneurs. We have to make our own luck. And sometimes we live on the intersection, and I think I live on this intersection almost every day, between reality and fantasy. And you have these two worlds that sometimes collide. But it's your job to make sure, as an entrepreneur, as somebody that is a deal maker in the multifamily space, to hold on to fantasy and say, you know what? This is the vision. This is what I want to have come true. And I'm going to stretch my reality to hit that intersection. How do you do that effectively? Like, what do you do on a regular basis, day to day? So maybe some gold nuggets to help these investors that are listening and watching this podcast say, hey, you know what? I can do this too, and it's not as scary as what I may have led myself to believe.
Oh man, you're talking my language, right? So my two favorite movies are The Matrix and Inception. And the fact of the matter is the brain can't tell the difference between when you're dreaming and when you're awake. It's all reality while you're in the space. And so the things that I do in particular, like I spend 4 to 5 hours on myself every morning before I go out into the world and do stuff for other people. And that's movement. So I run 6 miles, believe it or not. Um, I'm meditating, I'm reading, I'm journaling, and I'm listening to content that's going to stretch me. And I've added in some weights as well as some foreign language. I'm learning Spanish. And so by doing those things, I'm improving myself. And I'm a disciple of the John Maxwell School of Leadership. And, I think your organization can only be as big as you are. It's called a leadership lid. And so every day I'm trying to improve or grow my leadership capabilities so that I can take my organization to the next level.
My Spanish is a little rusty, so I'm still trying to figure it out. But like, I'll just string a bunch of weird words together, like uh, uh, quiero una biblioteca sin queso, right? Like, I want a library without cheese. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Who says that? You would never, ever, ever, ever say that in conversational Spanish. But it's a very handy language to learn, so that's awesome. What time do you like get up? Now I'm curious. Like, what time do you get
Yeah,
up, and like what time? Because this is a 4 to 5 hour exercise, right?
right.
So are you like a 3 a.m. kind of guy? Please don't tell me you're a 3 a.m. kind of guy.
I'm a 4 to 5 a.m.
Okay,
guy. I'm
okay,
a 4 to 5.
that's a good sweet
And
spot. Yeah.
yeah, what it does though is it compresses the back end, right? So if I don't take calls before 9:30 or 10, then I've got that time to really just focus in on me and make sure that I've done what I need to do in order to face the day, right? I think a lot of people who are entrepreneurs don't really understand that if you start the days with success and being able to say, hey, I did this, I did this, I did this, that it rolls into the rest of the day and creating what I call the momentum of success.
The momentum of success. Explain that.
Yeah. So this goes back. Let's go talk about Moby Dick and taking down a 100-unit apartment building.
Yep.
You know how deflating it is to try to find a 100-unit deal for 2.5 years for a lot of the people who pay $30,000 to $50,000 for these education programs, right?
Yeah.
Instead of going to do a 10, 15, 20, or 30-unit deal in the first 6 to 10 months or 12 months, get that deal taken down, have something to show for all the effort that you've been putting in, then using that as a piece of your track record that you can point to go harness more people to partner with on deals, talk to brokers about your next opportunity, et cetera, et cetera. Instead of, oh yeah, I'm working on this, I'm thinking about this. Eventually you got to have a win. And so what I do is I front load my day with wins. It doesn't really take a whole lot to sit down and read for 30 minutes. I don't run my 6 miles for time, right? I get there when I get there. It's just a momentum of moving and getting through it. Do I try to get faster? Sure. But at the end of the day, I'm not doing it for time. I'm just doing it to say that I did it. And that piece was harder. And so now when something happens that I don't enjoy, for instance, I had a contract fallout yesterday for a property that we were selling. I can reach back in that cookie jar and say, hey, I got these things done. I'm still having a good day, even though that one thing didn't go the way I wanted it to go. And it's, having a bunch of positive things happen to balance out those negative things that I think really keeps you even instead of going in the tank. I really get frustrated when people say, I had a bad day. No, you had one or two instances that you didn't enjoy, and that ended up being, you decided to make that your whole day instead of saying, oh, yeah, well, those 30 seconds sucked. And then that 15-minute phone call was bad. But then all these other great things happen with the other time in the day. And so, I had some things I didn't enjoy, but I really enjoy these parts of my day.
And so as a result of that, you're crushing it as a real estate investor, as a multifamily investor who isn't fazed by a contract falling out because that's just the natural order of business. Stuff you've your highs, you have your lows, you've got your ebbs and flows, and that's just the way it is, right? You're that much closer to finding one that you will buy.
Without question. For me, it's part of the process, and knowing is part of the process. Once you are in the flow of doing deals, and Michael talking about things slowing down, you get in the zone, right? You can look at a deal and say, hey, here's what's going to happen on this deal. Let's create this plan and make sure that we can take care of those things when they happen. Or, the thing you mentioned COVID earlier, right? This is, nobody has a crystal ball for it, but everybody's speculating on what's going to happen. But your ability to look around corners and see over walls before you actually get there is a difference maker between somebody who has a super successful business and someone who is just getting by. It's that ability to anticipate that puts you in a different place.
There's a poker-like game that's played in Asia, and I can't remember for the life of me the name of the game. But you can look at your cards, and then you can also you have to like bend the card and like look at the card from all angles. And if you don't like the card, you can swap out the card for another card until you have the hand that you want to play with. And I love that strategy because that parallels exactly what you're talking about, right? It's like, hey, you can look around the corners, up, down, inside, and out, and this gives you the power to make these right decisions, not only for your portfolio, but then also the long-term strategy and for your success. So, Jerome, if we want to learn a little more about you and some of the projects that you're working on, maybe a fund that you have, maybe you're looking at raising some capital for some of the projects that you have going on, where can we reach you? What's the best way that we can engage?
Yeah, I think the best place for your listeners to go would be jeromemyers.co. So JeromeMyers.co.
Awesome. JeromeMyers.co. One gold nugget before I let you go.
Your dreams should be real. And I don't think a lot of people hear that, especially not as adults. But the reality of the situation is you were put on this planet to do something special. And there are other people counting on you to do your thing so they can do their thing. And so every day that you leave that dream on the shelf and don't make worthy progress towards it is a failure. And so I encourage you to take that dream off the shelf and go do that thing and do it quickly so that we don't let other people down.
Bingo. And we've already won the game of life. Like the fact that we have life means that we've already won the game. Otherwise, we wouldn't even be here. And I think
I
that's a
agree.
really cool. I think that's really a cool testament to kind of, hey, go make the world what you want it to be, and help others. So, Jerome, thanks so much. I certainly appreciate you jumping on with me.
Thank you. This was a great opportunity.
You got it. I need to give a huge, awesome shout out to the sponsor of this segment, which is Real Property Management, the largest residential property management franchise in North America, managing tens of thousands of properties for individuals, investors, and institutions throughout the country. Learn more at realpropertymgt.com or call 888-806-7088. So pre-COVID, what did most apartment renters want? They wanted a pool, they wanted community amenities, right? Community amenities. Well, in a recent Greystar survey, they suggested a couple things might be changing. Quote, given that people might be spending less time outside now, go figure, balconies are becoming a very popular and a more in-demand amenity. I would even take a look at an on-site pool or gym, but making sure that you have a reservation process to use that in advance. And I think it also says here a sophisticated package delivery system that where I can pick up my packages 24/7. They're in a locker, and let's say I get a QR code to my phone, and I go right to the locker, hit the QR code, and all of a sudden the package locker pops open, unlocks, and I can get my package. These are super, super easy features to consider when buying an apartment complex. I hope you kind of take that into consideration during your next apartment acquisition. And you know what? Don't skimp out on what your apartment renters are looking for. I think that's something that we obviously need to pay attention to. So Think Realty Nation, that's a wrap. If you want to get in touch, you know how to do it by visiting www.thinkrealty.com. You can follow me online anywhere, and I promise a follow back. So make sure that you get me on Instagram or LinkedIn at Abi Golhar. And again, we can't do this show without the help and support of our sponsors. And today's sponsor is Clint Coons of Anderson Business Advisors, nationally recognized for providing bulletproof asset protection, tax, and business strategy advice to real estate investors. Go to getbulletprooftoday.com and receive Clint Coons' book, Asset Protection for Real Estate Investors, for free while supplies last. Until next time, Think Realty Nation, happy investing.